My name is Jan Buijk. I'm a CEO of AB Energy Canada Limited. And AB Energy Canada was actually started as a company together by a colleague and myself in 2010. So that's when we decided to quit our jobs and start our own company called European Power Systems. Damn the torpedoes, we're going to do this ourselves. And we came to an agreement with a company from Germany to start importing containerized, packaged modular CHP systems into the Canadian market. And we were actually successful in the first year, $500,000 in sales, second year, $2.5 million, third year, $10 million. And by that time, we had been picked by AB. That AB was a company headquartered in Italy looking at expanding globally. So they reached out, wanted to talk to us about a possible acquisition of European Power Systems. And we first met with AB in January of 2013. And following that meeting in August of 2013, we were acquired by AB, and AB acquired 51% of the business. So our business is not only the containerized modular systems like what's behind me, because that is effectively a box. Gas goes in, could be biogas, natural gas, or any gaseous fuel. And then electricity comes out. And if it's a cogeneration system, we can have hot water or steam heat recovery to provide heating or process heat to factory. But then also AB a few years ago decided to enter the renewable natural gas business. Similar business philosophy as what we've done on the power generation side. But in this case, it's a modular system where effectively biogas goes in and then clean it up, remove the CO2, remove contaminants, and then natural gas comes out, renewable natural gas, that then is injected into the natural gas pipeline system. Those are the two main markets or businesses that we're active in today. It is gas-fueled power generation and biogas upgrading of biogas to renewable natural gas. I've always been focused on local generation. It is either behind-the-meter generation, whether it's hospitals, universities, industrial facilities, where instead of buying power from the grid and having a boiler in your basement to produce the heat that you need for your building, we would make a case for generating your own power with your own cogeneration system and have a return on investment by investing in a cogeneration plant. And that really is at the core of what we've done all those years, is to generate electricity very efficient at your site. But then over the years, other markets pop up. It's been not only behind the meter cogeneration, it has been with behind me a merchant plant. So this is an investment by Enbridge, deciding that they wanted to invest over time in as much power generation as how much electricity they consume as a Canadian organization. And this plant, 20 megawatts, will run entirely against the market price in Alberta. So we've done a few projects like that as well, where customers, IPPs, decide that it's worth investing in a plant that will benefit from high power prices when they can then run and sell power into the grid at those prices. AB is a global company. Our headquarters and the factory is in Italy, and then AB has a presence in countries across Europe, Canada, US, Mexico, South America, and more recently we entered Singapore and the Far East. So we're spreading our wings, and it really depends on where you are, what the local conditions are that will determine what market or industries there's opportunities for. And I'll give an example. If you're in a market where suddenly there's a lot of an interest in building or acquiring greenhouses to start growing cannabis, and people want to have greenhouses up and running as fast as possible, do not have grid power available, do need grow lights, then suddenly there's a boom in selling CHP systems that get customers like that the electricity and the heat that they need to operate that greenhouse. If there's a market where there's a combination of low natural gas prices and high power prices, there is a opportunity for industrial clients that say, hey, I can put in my own cogeneration system, generate my own power, and recover the heat and lower my energy costs. Ontario is a funny market where any customer with a demand greater than 1 megawatt, they can opt in to be what they call a Class A customer, and they pay global adjustment in direct correlation to what their demand is during the 5 peaks in the Ontario grid during a whole year. So if they manage to get their demand during a peak event to zero, then they will not pay any global adjustment charge. So customers like that, they're not at all interested in cogeneration. They all just want to generate power for a few hours a year. When a peak is expected, and if they catch all those peaks, they can save $400,000 to $700,000 per megawatt per year. And it's those kind of local considerations, market conditions that will determine what the opportunities are that we pursue. A few years ago in Ontario, there was an incentive program targeting district energy and greenhouse applications, where Ontario was in need of additional power generation capacity. And so they had a CHP standing offer program that would allow for facilities that have a significant heat demand to put in a CHP system where the heat would go to in our case, to the greenhouse, and the electricity would go into the grid. And when a program like that comes out, it's full speed ahead, target every greenhouse we can get a hold of, and try to get enthusiastic to pursue this opportunity. We started, I think, with about 40 greenhouses that expressed interest. When it became time to submit a non-refundable participation fee, or whatever they call it at the time, the half of them dropped out. They were interested until it came time to spend some money. But 20 still submitted bids. 10 were offered contracts. 8 contracts were signed, and 7 got built. It goes over a period of a few years, but it suddenly a greenhouse market that delivered significant results to us because of an incentive program. But the market conditions really drive who our potential customers are and who we try to engage with. And if there is a incentive program for biogas, fuel power generation, it will be all over potential customers that are interested in buying biogas-fueled CHP systems. Merchant plants, Enbridge is a good example. The plant behind me, they are looking at investing in power plants like this. So a very successful project. A few years ago, customer Magna, car parts manufacturer, they still have a factory called Olicon. They were able to qualify for a 40% capital cost contribution under the Ontario Energy Savings Program and invested in a 8 megawatt cogeneration plant where all the energy is used at the factory itself. So 8 megawatts of power, hot water from the engines, steam from the engine exhaust, and a commitment that for 10 years they run at least 80% of the hours that were in the initial model on how they would run that plant. But if you look at where do we really shine in this world, it is our focus on greenhouses. That is one market that we continue to hammer away at regulators, at utilities, at governments, at anybody who wants to listen, because that is the best application for what we do. Run on natural gas, all the heat produced goes to the greenhouse, all the electricity can either go to the lights that they need in the greenhouse or can be exported into the grid. And in the exhaust, if there's enough running hours in the year, you can actually clean the exhaust and then injects it in the greenhouse. And that's where the plants then will absorb the CO2 that is present in your exhaust. So now you have a system where highest possible energy efficiency and even the CO2 is used in the greenhouse. The greenhouse has the flexibility. If the power is cheap, they buy power from the grid. If power is expensive, they export power into the grid. So they can always look at what is the best mix. If they have demand for power but not for heat, they have these huge buffer tanks, and it's like millions of liters. Like the large greenhouse sometimes have 2, 3, 4 million liter size tanks that where they store the hot water, so they can produce at one time of the day the power and they use the heat at night. Yeah, so very efficient, and especially because the greenhouses do need CO2 for their plants, we see that it's a huge market opportunity to get past some of the public opposition to gas-fired generation. But there's some applications out there that actually are really good and that can help support the grid and support the intermittent renewables that we all want to see more of. For the vast majority of projects, it is lowering energy costs or improving system reliability. Those are the key benefits. And it's truly about return on investment, except for, and that was the first example that I brought up, when you're building something, the cannabis greenhouses, it is a perfect example. You buy an old greenhouse, you want it up and running within 6 months, and you cannot get grid power for 3 years. Now you don't care how much you're going to spend on buying some generators because you need power, you want to be up and running. So then the benefit is that we deliver the power that you need. But the vast majority is return on investment and reliability. There is an additional benefit in the greenhouse. The greenhouses need this CO2 in the greenhouse. If they produce CO2 by burning natural gas in their boilers, then there's a point where the heat that they produce by burning this gas in the boiler, they can only produce this much heat until those buffer tanks are at capacity. If they burn the same amount of gas, but then in a cogeneration system, half of the energy goes to heat, the other half goes to the production of electricity. So in fact, they can produce twice as much exhaust, twice as much CO2 for the same amount of heat that they need to store or get rid of. So they can, in fact, have more CO2 available for the greenhouse before they run out of thermal capacity limitation of the buffer tank. So that is also an additional benefit that the greenhouse has. Over the years, where I felt there has been a significant opportunity that never got really maximized the way I saw possible in Europe, it's a district energy. A good example is in Calgary, East Village. There is, I think it's a Bell Center in that area. There's also a district energy system. That to me is a perfect example of a urban energy system. So they have boilers in there, they have cogeneration system in there, they generate power and heat locally that is being distributed to the area. So there's multiple buildings in the area that are connected to this district energy system. That is a really good example of what is possible. So the one in Calgary is a project that we happen to do AB in Canada. In my prior employment, I've been involved in a couple of projects in Ontario, district energy projects, typically a 3 to 6 megawatt sized small cogeneration plant with boilers, with heat distribution system that would then provide heating and power, sometimes also cooling to a certain section in the downtown core. Whether it was Hamilton, Sudbury, Cornwall. Yeah, there's a number of towns around there that invested in those kind of projects. Most of them got stuck. That there was a lot of effort to get the initial project off the ground, but it has been very difficult to expand these projects. And I think that is an ongoing opportunity to build on the first bit of success but it's been very difficult and challenging expand on these systems. But I say that is a very good example of what I feel is a very solid, very good example of decentralized energy, in this case, an urban environment, generate your electricity and heat locally and have an efficient energy system. The long-term or perhaps near-term objective is to maximize renewables, solar, wind, water. So it's really about decarbonizing the power generation resources. But to get there, today you still need flexible generation that can kick in when all else fails. So I see an ongoing important role for the types of projects we bring to market to be the backbone of a grid that gets more and more renewables connected and producing renewable electricity. Now, do we have numbers to support that? No, it's a fundamental gut feel understanding that you do need reliable gas-fired generation when everything else fails. And so that's what we feel is an important role for some years to come. There's a lot of discussion these days, a lot of materials being published about transitioning to different fuels. Every engine that we sell today, there's a sticker on it that says hydrogen ready. So today it will run natural gas. If 5 years from now you want to convert it to run on 100% hydrogen, it can be converted to run on 100% hydrogen. Not clear what the hydrogen availability will be, if there's hydrogen infrastructure that could be utilized, but that is a possibility. Then there is the RNG. So we talked about RNG, where as AB in the hardware space, basically taking the biogas, upgrading it, putting then the RNG into the natural gas pipeline. Today, that market is driven by utilities, industrial customers, natural gas consumers that will continue to consume natural gas, but then will pay for the RNG to be injected elsewhere in the North American pipeline system, effectively making their operation carbon neutral because they are paying for the RNG that is displacing the natural gas that they consume. So for us, we see those as paths to decarbonize the engine operation. Hydrogen absolutely is on the radar screen as a fuel that engines are readily able to run on. RNG, really, you don't change the configuration. You continue to run on natural gas, but now you pay for RNG to be injected in a natural gas pipeline rather than that you pay for the natural gas. The start of AB was, in fact, using biogas from, in Italy, incentive programs for biogas fuel cogeneration. They have hundreds of biogas-fueled cogeneration plants across the country. They're all switching now to RNG because that's where the money is. That's where the market has gone to. It's from a sustainability perspective, it is very important to the company. The owner, Angelo Barnkelly, his background is farming. His wife and her parents live in the middle of the factory. So they built the factory around the old farmhouse, but also meaning that on site we have a biogas plant. So we actually produce biogas, and that biogas then is burned into a biogas cogeneration plant, and that is what is powering the factory. So there's all these real sustainable things that AB does. It's living on the land, growing food, having the organic waste materials that can be captured. So biogas fueled cogeneration was really the start of AB. There is the natural gas fuel generation that has been a big part of our business over the years, but it's the most efficient way of generation with heat utilization and in case of greenhouses, not only capturing the heat, being able to use it at a different time of the day, utilizing the CO2, and then more recently entering the RNG space with AB's own biogas upgrading solutions. So it's front and center within the AB organization that what we do has to be sustainable. In Italy right now, there's an incentive program that is known that will come out, I think, somewhere this fall with a very short period to get RNG systems from date of order to get them up and running. AP's understanding of the program and how this will play out, they've already started ahead of time to manufacture 50 RNG systems that they have ready to go by the time this program comes out. AP as a company will manufacture at a time based on their understanding of the market. I think in a peak year, we could do somewhere between 200 and 250 cogeneration systems, maybe with some additional flexibility by working multiple shifts. But it's always about trying to match the demand, order intake, equipment availability. We're trying to gauge what is happening currently in the data center market, the data centers that are being proposed and planned. And what has happened is there is a shift taking place of traditionally a data center developer would look for locations where they can get electricity, build a data center, have a lineup of diesels, and live happily ever after. So today, the North American electrical grid is severely constrained. So it's becoming more and more difficult to secure the power that you need for facilities like that. And there's a shift starting to happen where data centers look at, okay, where can we get power? Do we need to generate our own power? So instead of where is natural gas available? And then we start to generate our own power. Yeah, even so I look at nuclear. And we're sitting there going, okay, where do we fit in? So we're actively trying to figure out, is our value manufacturing capacity that when a data center gets built or it's being planned, that there is demand for the capacity, the manufacturing capacity that we have, that we can deliver modular power generation systems for when they need the power? Or is this going to a totally different scale that is outside of our capability? So those are things that we play with, think about, try to figure out. In the Netherlands, where I'm from, there's about 18,000 megawatt power market. Out of that 18,000 megawatt demand, the greenhouse sector delivers about 3,500 megawatts of capacity. So that's where the greenhouse sector has been able to accommodate 3,500 megawatts of high efficiency cogeneration that will run really flexible based on all these different inputs. What's the power price? What's the gas price? What is the thermal demand in the greenhouse? What is the lighting demand? What's the CO2 demand? And then choose whatever the most efficient way is of running their facility and whether to export power or buy power. So really maximum efficiency and optimize the operation. Ontario has a significant greenhouse market, but it's been very difficult to get an Ontario government or an ISO to go beyond the occasional incentive program. It's every 10 years something comes out that they go, yeah, we'll do something for the greenhouse sector. Biogas across Europe there's digesters everywhere, on every farm, on every organic source, and the programs to incent the development of these projects, where in North America it continues to be the occasional incentive program that then suddenly creates some opportunities. District energy is a great example, where in the early 90s, I traveled to Europe several times with municipal decision makers, mayors, councillors, utility executives, every year to a different country. Denmark, Holland, Germany, Finland, Sweden. Yeah, so every year a different country. And I was clever enough to explain to the people I worked for that I should be the one to go there as well. So I ended up traveling on all these trips. And then show these people what's possible in the hope that they would come back to Canada and then would have seen something that they can then pursue developing in their own communities. So it's with that in mind that projects did happen. A lot of the district energy projects that I rattled off earlier, actually they did get built as a result of an energy study tour like that. Toronto's Deep Lake cooling system that Enwave did at the time was started when I think it was Dennis Frutinos who was leading Enwave at the time. He saw this at a trip in Stockholm. But he saw what was possible and it goes, why don't we do this in Toronto? And it happened. What I find the most interesting about my work is the ability to travel. The fact that I'm part of an international organization, that I'm exposed to what's happening in Europe 3 or 4 times a year. I get to travel to Italy, to where it's sales meetings or with customers. Then, because I have family back in Holland, on the way back I can fly to Holland. That is for me extremely important. The travel, the meeting with all these different people, whether it's travel across Canada, travel to Europe, and be involved in all these different technologies, trying to figure out how our technology fits within the bigger picture. And then this is how I'll circle back to Decentralized Energy Canada, because that is why I've been part of Canada for the past, 20 years or so. And because that is also a place where you have the focus on local energy production from local resources and energy efficiency, decentralized energy. So to be part of that conversation, I'm focused specifically on gas-fired generation and RNG, but it has to fit into the bigger picture. And the ability to learn about this, communicate about this on I wouldn't say global, but it's North America, European scale, Canada, with all kinds of different, very interesting people that are in this decentralized energy space. That's what I am very excited about.